So I guess I'll hand it over to Nigel.
Okay, thanks so much, Norman. Yeah, I honestly see some familiar faces here in this room. I think I trained some of you before as well in restorative practices. Florence, right? Florence, Wei Ming. I met some of you here and there. I believe I met Anil David prior to a yellow ribbon YRF Foundation presentation for funding. Yeah. So hi everyone, I'm Nigel. I'm from LCCS. So LCCS stands for Lutheran Community Care Services. Yeah, so we are a social service agency. Yeah, and we work with quite a large range of people. We work with families. Like for my team, we work with low-income families and also with individuals in the prisons and also the ex-offenders as well. So I'm in charge of the community domain. That's my team's name. So together with me, we would very much most of the work with the working with the prisons comes with my team lah. Yeah. So thanks so much, Louis, for having me here at this Mac sharing. It's my first time as well. I'm very glad to see all of you here this evening. Yeah. So perhaps let me just share my slides and then I'll give a little bit more background about LCCS. Yeah, so LCCS, we started in 2002. Yeah, it's a full member of NCSS in 2003, and then we got our IPC status in 2006, and we are then became a partner of IRP, the Institute for Restorative Practices, in 2013. Yeah, so we partner very closely with them in terms of rolling out trainings about restorative practices, especially in Singapore. And of course, sometimes we have some of the Asian counterparts, like for example, in Hong Kong or even in like Malaysia and all, they do come to us as well to find out a little bit more about restorative practices. So this is our humble journey thus far. And that's been about maybe just past our 20th anniversary last year only. Yeah. Okay, so LCCS, we focus a lot on this practice called restorative practices, RP. I'm sure some of you might have heard it along the way because it's probably something quite been ongoing, I think, in the prisons as well. Since we started training the staff in the prisons, some of the RP champions about restorative practices. Yeah, so this particular framework supports our practice in engaging individuals in building and sustaining relationships with connected communities. So we're not just talking about in the prisons itself, we're really talking about relationships everywhere. Yeah. So, and that's what the framework seeks to help to provide. Okay, so before we go into my sharing about what restorative practices is, right? Perhaps I would like to hear from all of you. Yeah, I'm sure all of us here, we probably work with some of the inmates or the ex-offenders, right? The desisters, right? And also, or probably we work with other individuals amongst the families and all. So when you work with them, what would you like them to talk about their experience when they work with you?
If it's not comfortable for anyone to actually ask questions, you can also type your questions in the chat where maybe I can volunteer to actually ask the question for all of you.
Yeah. Hello, me, it's okay. I can, if you want. Yeah. Nice to meet you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dijers. So I am artist. For me, the most important and the best point that it's people who express what they have inside of them, express their feeling, express also the trauma, all the experience they can have experiment in their previous life in the society. So it's important that they can express themselves and relieve all the stress, the trauma, the bad memories and the good memories also. So to be able to focus more and more on themselves and how they can stay positive, optimistic, and build their future thanks to their unique personality.
Thank you, Dijas. Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
maybe if I could ask Dijas a little bit more. So personally for yourself, have you worked with any individuals?
I did one time a workshop for ex-inmate women,
Okay.
and I visit also the prison, the main prison.
Okay.
And yes, and in general, it's the way but for me, yeah, it's the same if you do with I used to do with team building, entrepreneur, but I don't do so much the difference because for me, one human is one human. Everybody has something inside and some trauma. After, for sure, in prison and ex prison, it's more consequent, more deep, and it's traumatism. But it's the way I always conduct my workshop. It's the objective is that the person can be fully himself through art.
Okay, thank you, Dijas.
Thank you, Nigel.
All right, anyone else, if you'd like to share about what do you hope to hear of individuals when they share about the experience, when they work with you or when they speak with you?
Hello. My name is Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
I am from a employer side. My company is England Contractors Private Limited. So I'm employing them more as cleaners for my company. But what I hope to hear actually is the personal space in terms of psychological safety. When I speak to them, they can open up themselves to talk about what they go through, or what for example, if they have conflict, what kind of experience that they have, what kind of difficulty that they face, and how normally do they overcome. I think that's what I prefer to hope to hear from them. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. That's why I hope to give them a so-called psychological safety environment whereby they can speak up and start to open up themselves as a person to experience the kind of interaction that we can help them.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I hear what you were saying about the psychological safety, about able to prepare, give them that space to talk about themselves, what they're actually going through, right? Yeah, and I think that's something that I believe many of us here can resonate with Daniel as well, that when we talk to people, we want to give them that space to feel safe, that they can share what they're going through, how they feel, be safe enough to tell you their troubles, their concerns, things that probably they never open up to many, but they are willing to open up to you. Okay? Yeah. All right. Maybe
Nigel, I got one comment that this is from Jam Sari. He says that the conversation that he has been helpful for them to move forward.
Yeah, to see them progress, right? That because I have spoken to so and so, and you know, I feel at a better space to be willing to move forward from where I am, be it in any way. It could be a practical action, or it could be even emotionally. I feel at a better space after talking to you. Okay, and so what you have mentioned, right, is all also somewhat related to restorative practices. Because the whole idea of restorative practices is able to provide safe spaces, vulnerable spaces, such that people are able to grow. They are able to have these safe conversations with you. And in order for safe conversations to happen, right, it requires us to have a good relationship with them as well, a strong relationship. Okay, because I think many a times imagine if we do not have relationships with people around us and we just want them to grow, okay? The likelihood of them growing is not very possible, okay? They might not move forward due to the lack of relationship with you, okay? And I would expound a little bit more as I go along the way. So what is restorative practices? Okay, I'll share a video from this. Okay, and then I'll elicit a bit more of the responses from the video after this. So try to pick up maybe one or two things that you resonate with. You could feel that, wow, this is also important to me as you watch the video.
Nigel, there's no sound.
Oh, sorry. Okay, wait. Let me just take a look what's happened. Just a minute. Let me try that again.
Our world is changing at a breathtaking pace. Social patterns that have long characterized human life are changing dramatically around the globe, diminishing social bonds within families, schools, workplaces, and communities. But humans,
Sorry, Nigel, there's no video now. There's audio but no video.
just as we need food, shelter, and clothing,
Okay, good.
we also need strong and meaningful relationships to thrive. With all this in mind, what is restorative practices? Restorative practices is an emerging social science that studies how to strengthen relationships between individuals and within communities. When put into practice, the effects are profound. In schools, students experience greater safety and sense of belonging, resulting in improved behavior, less bullying, and less violence. In workplaces, leaders facilitate direct communication among staff and address conflict as it arises. The result is higher performance, greater accountability, and effective collaboration. In criminal justice, new options allow victims and offenders, friends and family, to repair the emotional harm caused by crime. Throughout our neighborhoods, restorative practices give regular people more voice in the issues that matter most. In a nutshell, restorative practices is the science of relationships and community. Your individual daily interactions have a big impact on the world around you, at your job, with young people, and throughout your community. How we relate matters. This video was brought to you by the International Institute for Restorative Practices. To learn more, attend our flagship event, Basic Restorative Practices, enroll in a graduate course, or join us at a world conference.
Okay, so perhaps at this point, if any of you could share what resonated with you in the video itself.
So yeah, we have Nigel. We have some comments for the participants, like process of relating to others, maybe relationship, empathy, group therapy, and yeah.
Yeah, so there's some about empathy, the group therapy, relationship, yeah, the support, okay. So if you could tell me from just now the video itself, right, what is restorative practices? I think the key thing we could capture maybe very much of is the importance of relationships and community. All right, about the safe spaces that we want to provide to people around us. And it doesn't just happen in the prisons itself, but it could be anywhere. Maybe in your family, it could be in your workplaces, in the schools, or even in the communities that we are working with. Yeah. So one of the things that LCCS subscribe to about restorative practices, okay, is that we believe that RP is a way of thinking and being. So that's focused on creating the safe spaces for real conversations to take place, such that it can deepen relationships and build stronger and more connected communities. So why do I say it's a way of thinking and being? Because restorative practices is not a tool. Okay, what do I mean by that, right? Maybe some of us here are trained in certain therapies. Okay, maybe we are cognitive behavioral trained. Maybe we are social solution focused, brief therapy trained. We are trained in art therapy, sand play therapy, and so on and so forth. So RP is not here to replace what you have learned professionally or have trained professionally, but RP is here to complement, to help you to still continue to use what you have been training in, just that we want to bring out certain explicit way of building relationships with people around us. All right, and I'll explain a little bit more. So RP is not rocket science. Today, after this session, you might feel, oh, so this is RP. Maybe I have been also in my ways, have been practicing RP. But just that it has never stood out and explicitly someone tell me that it is RP. All right, so it will not be a rocket science thing, but it's meant to help us to be more explicit in how we build relationships and restore relationships with people around us. Okay, so relationships, you hear me talk a lot about relationships. So my question today is that why do relationships matter to you personally?
I think it's about trust. We only trust those people we have a relationship with, right? If not, we might not even bother about what they say, or there will be little influence over that they can have over us. Yeah.
Thank you, Raifu. Yeah, the trust, I think when you build
I
people.
can I say something? I think relationship, the word itself, relation, because you have to have something to relate with someone to share and to understand each other. So yeah.
Thank you,
Hello.
Iswan.
Hello, can I join in? Okay. I think relationship is like openness. That means both parties are open to share their challenges in their in many things like job, okay, and families problem, all this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Why do relationships matter to you?
Yes, I can add to learn. Everybody can learn from each other.
Yeah.
Simple.
Okay. Yeah. So
Also,
I think oh, sorry. Is there someone
sorry.
else?
Yeah, hi. I guess it's also a connection of a person to trust this relationship to kind of relate their inner kind of issues and problem to the person, and also a respect for both ways of interrelationship.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think most of you mentioned a lot of things about the importance of relationships. I think the one thing is that everyone has relationships. I mean, the moment we came into where we are, with our families or even with people around us, the community, relationships is there. We cannot run away from it. It's only whether how good these relationships are in our lives. But the fact of the matter is that relationships are everywhere. Okay, and so that's something that why we also believe that the importance of relationships around us is very vital for people to grow, people to learn, people to move forward. I think Waifu brought up about the point on trust. when you build strong relationships, you also build stronger trust in the other person, that you are willing to listen to him or her, stronger trust to be willing to move forward because of what they might have mentioned or said to you.
I think
Okay,
Nigel,
and
Nigel, can I just
yes,
add
Lawrence.
on? I think relationships it's much more than just connecting. It is about a special touch point, right? That you can actually share stuff without worrying about, like you said, right, the safe space, right? I think it's not just about connecting, it's much more than that because it's special. And we need to build that connection tightly before you can even move forward. Because you mentioned very clearly, right, that safe is a very clear one, a clear connection. Only when you feel safe is there a real relationship. When you're able to talk about anything you're under the sun, right? So that needs to be defined very carefully as well. Because people don't open up to anybody because you say you got a relationship. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. I think it's deeper than just a connection.
Yeah. And I might touch a little bit more about that later on in my slides as well. My sharing about the importance of that safe space beyond that connection, and what people might actually look for in this relationship, such that they are willing to grow. Okay, so at the tip of the iceberg now, maybe if I share a little bit more about why relationships do matter. Okay, we believe that good relationships are basis for growth. When there's relationships with one another, people are more willing to grow, they are more willing to move forward, they are more willing to take in certain advice or make certain decisions when there's relationships. Okay, but the thing about relationships is that anything that affects relationship also impedes growth. Okay, so imagine if, let's say, with my dad, if there's any rubbings or issues between us, I might be less likely to want to grow when he actually talks to me. Or let's say, for example, if there are certain disagreements, or I don't feel safe to talk to him anymore because he did something that has broken my trust towards him. You know, it impedes my growth as an individual. Okay, but the thing about it is that when we see such things happening amongst relationships, it's actually when we challenge the inappropriate behavior. Okay, and this challenging inappropriate behavior needs to be experienced as an opportunity for growth. So what do I mean by that? We many a times shun away from difficult conversations. Think most of the time we might want to just sweep it under the carpet. Yeah. But the thing is that if we sweep it under the carpet and let it just lay low, sometimes we miss the opportunity that it could actually provide an individual to grow from the experience, to actually talk about it. So do I mean that immediately you talk about an issue? I don't mean that. But how do we prepare an individual to a space where he feel that, yeah, I can talk about the inappropriate behavior of what I did, my action that has impacted someone in my life, my action about what I did that actually made my mom and dad felt that, you know, they were very disappointed with me. So when we allow for that to happen, it might actually allow for growth to take place, both the parents and also with the individual himself or herself. Okay, so I share a little story of this particular individual that I worked with when he was referred to me from SPS. So we did a program called Project Rekindle. So Project Rekindle, the main aim was to actually restore relationships between inmates and their family members. So these individuals that came to us would have zero to very minimal contact with their family members. They are detached, not close to their family members at all, not receiving any visitations, or even letters from their family members. So they are really just on their own, really just isolated. So when I met Damien from Project Rekindle, he didn't have a very strong relationship with his parents. Yeah. And he also didn't have a very strong relationship with his younger brother. Yeah. What happened to him was that he was caught for drug trafficking when he was very young, during his teen days. And so his sentence was very harsh as well. Thankfully, he avoided the gallows, but he just got a very long sentence to serve. And Damien never had opportunity to talk to his parents about his issue when he actually offended and went into drug trafficking, ever since he was incarcerated. So when I met Damien for the first time, I remember this guy who just was okay to talk about anything, but just didn't want to talk about the incident of why he actually went to drug trafficking and all. So I began to build my relationship with Damien. Okay. One of the framework in restorative practices is called the practice domains. So this is what the practice domains look like. Okay. It is a quadrant. Okay. On the vertical axis, you will see a high challenge and a low challenge. And on the horizontal axis, you will see a low support and a high support. So when I first met Damien, if I were to work with him, I knew I had to find a way to build this relationship with him. Okay. And so I could be very punitive. Maybe some of you might experience this before. Very high challenge and no support. How it will sound like is that I will go to Damien and say, hey, Damien, you've been referred to Project Rekindle. You have to have this family conversation with your parents to talk about what happened. We want to restore the relationship. Okay, so I'm going to have to bring you into a family circle and we're all going to sit down and talk about it. So it is a very tool, because I'm telling Damien that I'm going to do this to him. Then you have to sit down and have this family conversation with your parents and your brother. Now, my question to all of you, if I did that with Damien, what do you think he might do? I see Dijas shake her head.
Yeah, but he refused to come. He refused to go.
Okay, Lawrence, you want to say something?
No, I'm okay. I'll say something else. Let somebody else say something.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he will look for a lot of reasons to be unwell, so that he don't have to attend.
Yeah, so likely Damien would not want to talk to me at all, because I make him do something that he might not want. I force him into something very punitive. Yeah, so if I would have gone that way, he would not have responded. There could be other ways that I could have worked with Damien. I decided to be, okay, maybe Damien needs space. I don't care about him lah. I go into the session, I just, hey Damien, hey whatever lah, huh? You just tell me you want to do, don't want to do, then never mind lah. It's okay. I don't really care anyway lah. I believe Damien also will tell me he don't really care also lah. Why are you here for lah? Okay? Or I could tell Damien, hey Damien, tell you what, I'll do everything for you. Okay, you just tell me what you want. Anything you want, right? I'll go and fulfill it for you. Okay? If you want me to talk to your parents, I'll do it for you. You feel that you just want me to come in and just we can talk anything under the sun, okay, I'll do it as well. Sounds very good. But what do you think if, let's say, I carry on this particular relationship with Damien in the long run, just doing everything for Damien? What might happen?
Damien do not change what?
Yeah, nothing might happen as well. I mean, he will find a very nice friend, maybe very nice person to talk to, okay, but he would never move from where he is. And so in restorative practices, we encourage individuals to work with them. Okay, so what do we mean by working with? It means setting high expectations, but also providing high support for them. So I had the conversation with Damien. When I went in the first session, I remember I asked Damien this question. I asked my first question to Damien is that, Damien, can you share with me your story? When I said your story, I didn't mean your story about how you got into drug trafficking. I said, tell me about you, your story about who you are. And he shared. And he went on. I didn't stop him. And then Damien, at one point in time, he turned to me and he said that, you know, Nigel, when I got sentenced, right, I heard many stories. I went through many programs as well. Okay, people try to change my cognitive behavior. People try to tell me what I need to do next. People try to say I need to change my certain patterns and all. But no one ever asked me, you know, about my story, how I am growing up as a child, up to the point that I was incarcerated. And I said, Damien, I'm here to journey with you. I'm here to work with you. Okay, and I shared with him why I come. My expectations that Project Rekindle is eventually wanting to see families coming together and having this vulnerable conversation. And so, yes, I provided Damien the space to talk about who he was and all, but I also told Damien that there's a particular aim in this program. I need to be clear with him and open with him. And I told him that I hope I can move with you towards that. But I want to ensure that you feel safe enough to eventually have this conversation. So am I saying that it's all just talking about the story and then nothing else? No. Working with him, I also have to set certain expectations. When we come in, you know, we might have to talk about this, you know, particular conversation about what happened, you know, who has been impacted because of your action. So working with people is not just about showing the support, but there also need to be certain expectations. And I think it's probably something similar even when we work with children or anybody around us in our relationships, right? Or even with our colleagues sometimes as well. If we only show the loving side and nurturing side to our colleagues, then our colleagues will never grow. So for instance, I like to share with people, if a new staff come into my organization, right, they ask me how to use the photocopying machine. I will show them how to use the photocopying machine. But if after 6 months, they are still coming to me and ask me how to use the photocopying machine and I am still doing it and photocopying for them, then I have failed because I have not worked with them. I need to be able to help them to grow to a point that they can be on their own, set the expectations that this is how you use, and in future, you can do it on your own, right? So I'm pretty sure many of you can relate as well in your families. How do you work with your children, with your friends, with your colleagues? Not just high support, but also providing the high expectations. So I move on with my story with Damien. Along the sessions, I then begin to allow him to talk about, so what is it that keep him away from his parents? And what did he not want to talk to them about? And we realized that it was something that he was feeling inside of him. It wasn't his parents' fault, but he just felt this shame within him, and that he didn't dare to talk about it. He didn't know how to talk about it. He never had the opportunity for someone to talk about what's happening for him. And so I showed him this particular concept called compass of shame. Okay, sometimes we are closed up from ourselves. We disconnect ourselves, and we disconnect ourselves from others as well around in the community. And it could be due to because the shame we are experiencing. And the shame that we're experiencing is not that I feel guilty, but it's that I feel that I'm a bad person. Okay, and how do we express this shame? It could be through different ways. On the top, you will see withdrawal. Okay, that's where we withdraw away from people. Okay, we close up from talking to people, cutting away ourselves from others. Okay, that's the withdrawal state. Other times we go into avoidance. Okay, that's where we find other ways to gratify ourselves. Addictions, masochism. So maybe masochism. So meaning, for example, cutting ourselves. Okay, using pain to inflict ourselves. And cancel that. Avoidance is going to addictions or things to suppress, okay, ourselves away from these relationships. So that's running away lah. Okay, using something to run away. Or we could attack ourselves. Okay, that's where we say that I'm a very lousy person. Yeah, I'm not good enough for my family. My family don't love me lah. I don't think they want me. They hate me. Or they go into self-harm, you know, just to attack themselves. So it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be psychological. Or they could attack others. Okay, my parents were the one at fault. From young, they didn't raise me up in the right way. My parents were the one that forced me to not go to what my dreams were. I wanted to go into MMA or boxing. My parents didn't allow me. So it's their fault that I turned out this way. So people can attack others as well. So these are ways of how individuals can exhibit when they actually experience shame. And this comes from a framework that was done up by Nathanson, okay, and Sylvan Tompkins when they actually developed this compass of shame. Okay, so when I process with Damien, ask Damien, where do you find yourself? I show him this picture and diagram. Where do you find yourself? And Damien told me, yeah, I think I see myself in withdrawal. And I asked him why. Why do you see yourself in withdrawal? And he said that I don't want to talk to them about what happened to me, because I feel that I can't face them because of what I did. They had high hopes and expectations for me as an elder son, but instead I did this. And he said this one thing. Actually, my mom has loved me a lot, and she did everything for me, but I threw it all away. So he withdrew away from his family. He didn't want to talk to them. And I asked him, Damien, what about your parents? Where do you think they are in this compass of shame? Okay, and Damien told me, I think they are attacking self. And I asked him why. He said that he feels that his parents blame themselves for the state of Damien. And so that conversation brought him to actually consider where his parents were at. Okay, in the same manner, I also use this compass of shame to go to his parents and ask them where they were and where they think Damien were. So it brought a connection to them that, hey, yeah, actually, I might be cutting away, I might be experiencing this shame within me, and I attack myself because I feel I've never raised my child well enough. I never did sufficient for him. Yeah. So this began to bring up conversations between me and Damien to talk about what he was experiencing within him. And so I worked with him for a period of time, and we finally said that, yeah, we want to go, we are more ready to be at a space to have this conversation as a family. And so I brought him a set of questions that I told him that I would want to see if you're open to use this particular set of questions, which I also adapted from restorative practices. Okay, but before we go into that, right, let me ask you something. So all of us experience negative incidents before, right? With people around us. It could be our loved ones, or it could be anyone. Okay, so suppose a negative incident happened. Okay, what is the most usual response that we have? I will show you two responses. On the left will be approach number one. Why do you do it? Who is to blame? And what punishment or sanction is required? On the approach number two is that what happened, what harm has resulted, and what needs to happen to make things right. So for the 36 participants that are here, okay, which approach would likely occur in the conversation when something happens?
One.
One. Okay. Do anyone else agree? Would say one as well? That we more likely experience that kind of conversation? You can use the raise hand
Maybe
function to show that, yes,
Can-
I agree as well.
Can it be mixed?
Yeah, it could be mixed as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but what most of us might have experienced approach number one. Am I right? Yeah. And actually, when I asked Damien this, Damien told me this one thing. Yeah. You know, the moment it happened, right? And I was brought in, I was caught by the police and all. Damien said this one thing. You know, the first question my parents asked me is that 为什么你这样做? Why do you do this? Yeah. And Damien told me that actually in his life when growing up, everybody always asking the same question. Why you did this? Why you did that? You know, how come you like that? You know, why you couldn't have done this and all? Then Damien told me that say, actually, you are the first person that asked me, tell me your story. And I told Damien this thing. Yeah, actually when I show you these questions, I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know your story. I'm not interested about what has you know, the particular harm and all. I'm not interested in that. I'll go to that later. But I just want to hear one thing is that I want to hear you share your story, your point of view. And so in restorative practices, we encourage also about using approach 2. Why approach 2? Because the what happened allows for one story to be heard. Another thing about the what happened question is that it doesn't place a judgment on them. It allows them to share from their perspective about what actually went on at that point in time. And then I process the harm that has resulted with him. Okay, how did it affect? I asked him, how do you think what you did affected your family? How do you think what you did affected your brother? And I finally asked him what needs to happen to make things right. So I used two sets of questions actually, which I will show. This was my question when I worked with Damien. I asked him what happened. What were you thinking at that point in time? What have you thought about since at this current juncture? Who has been affected by what you have done? And this is an important question because we're talking about relationships. I wanted to process with him the impact of harm, you know, with his parent, on his family or anyone else around him. And I allowed him to then decide what needs to happen for him to make things right. Okay, this is not immediate within one session. I need to make some clarifications. This happened through a process of journey with Damien. Okay, and also these are not miracle questions, but I want to share that this allows for him to reflect about the past, reflect about the present, what are your thoughts about since the present, and finally look at the future, what needs to be done next. In the same manner, I process it with his family, and I asked them these questions. What did they think when the incident happened? How did they feel at that point in time? And I asked them what impact has it on them, okay, ever since Damien's incarceration. Okay, what has been the hardest thing for them? And this is an important question. What has been the hardest thing? What is it that is the most painful? in right now, coming to having to go through it. And last but not least, what do they think needs to happen to make things right? And I facilitated this question together with the family and Damien. I brought them into after preparing them these questions, and I would say that the most crucial part about bringing families and individuals together is not about the circle. It's not about bringing them together. Actually, it's about the preparation. The preparation before they come in together is the most crucial. Because if we don't prepare individuals properly, we will cause them to actually be even more affected if they are not prepared properly. Because they will go into the session feeling even more triggered, or they might actually become even more hurt if we don't prepare them properly. Yeah, so the preparation is very crucial. Okay, so one of the key things about restorative practices is about allowing the community to have a voice space. So it's not just Damien, but everyone else to have a voice space. And so I brought them into this particular circle called a restorative circle. So it's a platform which I bring in the offender, the victims all together to discuss about the issue, the conflict, and the harm, how it has hurt them and affected the people around them. Okay, and work towards the healing of relationships. So I give a voice to everybody in the circle. So it's not just about what the parents want to say, but Damien also will have his space to talk about it. Okay, in my circle, that particular day, I remember I had Damien, his parents, his brother, and his RO. All of them sitting together in the circle itself. And I asked the questions to all of them for them to process through. Okay, to talk about the issue. Okay, but more importantly is that at the end of the day, I would never dictate what the community needs to do. So I'll never say, okay, Damien, now that you come into today's circle, right, and you heard everything, you need to change. And how are you going to do that? You need to do this. I will never say that. Or I will never tell the parents that, okay, now you have heard from Damien and you all have shared. Okay, now you all need to do this for Damien. Visit him and things like that. We will never do that. Because the idea about restorative practices is allow the community to say how they want to contribute. And so I ask every single individual in that circle, how can they contribute to Damien for the family members? Why? Because at the end of the day, responsibility doesn't lie with the facilitator. Responsibility lies with the community. The community is the one that takes the ownership and accountability for what their actions or what they want to do, and they will decide how they can contribute to the growth of Damien. And in the same manner, allowing Damien to decide what he wants to do as well. Okay, so we put the ownership and accountability back to them. Okay, so that is how I actually brought in the framework of restorative practices into a particular case. I can't share everything today. There's actually a lot more to unpack. And restorative practices has much more concepts. But I hope this probably tease out a little bit about how the framework can help to explicitly allow you to consider your practice when you work with individuals. Like for example, with the practice domains just now that I show, to consider, am I doing things for the people that I'm working together, journeying with? Am I doing things to them, forcing them into something that I feel that I want? Or am I working with them? And if I'm working with them, can I explicitly state how am I working with them? How am I providing them the expectations and the boundaries? And at the same time, how am I providing them the support as well for it? Okay, so it's to help you to be more explicit in the way you practice and build these relationships. Okay, so I have come to my last slide. stop share at this point in time. And I thought, I hope to interact maybe with all of you as well from today's sharing. And any questions you might have for me relating to restorative practices.
Hi, Joel. Your concept's very good, actually. You're very simple, and I feel it's very useful as well. I think key here, as you would probably realize, right, is the facilitation process. That one is got to be very skilled. Otherwise, it could go all over the place, right? Am I right to say that?
You're very right, Lawrence. Yeah. So it's not just as taking concepts everywhere and just pulling it together and then just using it. But it's about also a lot of preparation and to facilitate the whole circle. Being very mindful about the participants in the circle. Actually, the facilitation comes easier when the preparation is done well. Because during the preparation, I actually go through every single step-by-step process with them very clearly. And not just doing the step-by-step, right? I still ask them how would they answer to this particular question. So I would, on the spot, hear their responses during the preparation. So the preparation is not just, okay, these are my questions, this is what I'm going to ask, and then, okay, I'll see you on the day itself, you come in, and then that's all. But I will process it through with them with the questions that I'm asking.
So how many sessions do you have with Damon, and how many sessions do you have with the parents? And finally, when you put them all together, how many sessions do you have with?
I had 6 sessions with Damien, and I had 3 sessions with the family in total.
And finally, when you put them together, you have how many sessions with them?
I had only 1 circle with them.
Okay.
Only 1 circle.
No follow through.
How do you did you follow up? Who did the follow up, and what's the outcome of the entire process?
Sorry, you mean after the circle itself?
That's right.
Okay. So interestingly, okay. So as a facilitator, right? I'm there to allow the family and Damien to grow as a whole community and family. My key aim in for the particular project was to see their relationships being strengthened or be restored, and to actually see the family visiting Damien more. It's because he had minimal or 0 visits from the family. So after that, when I after the circle, up to this point, I did that circle in March. The family has been visiting him every month. And and in fact, Damien, I think he has now also moved from where he was into going to his studies as well already. So for me, right, my main goal was to actually see the family coming together to support one another, which was crucial for Damien because he didn't have that. And so after that, when the community is there to journey with him and he's a better space, I would slowly attrit myself away from the community. So I know most of us here might be journeying with a particular person for quite a long time. I have worked with those as well. But for this particular instance, the main goal was actually more to see how the relationships can be restored, between them.
So you saw the parents at your office, is it, or you
I
went to
met them at their home.
Do you think that makes a difference, meeting them in their home versus meeting them in your office?
So I told the parents that, let me know where you prefer. So I usually do not dictate. So I allow them to say where they feel safest to have this, to meet me.
Nigel, I have a question. So, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? 1 being chalat and 10 being excellent, right? Is the case study that you mentioned, right, based on your experience, how successful do you think that the whole process went
Wow.
by applying RP itself?
Wow, I say. Wow. 1 to 10. I think it went relatively okay. Yeah, maybe a 7 or 8. I did feel there was more things that could have been done as well, which I could have prepared more of for the participants when they actually come in. Yeah, so, but I think some things I wouldn't know until I allow for the conversation to take place, and then I just had to allow for that space to create whatever conversation that want to come out. So actually, right, during that conversation, right, yes, I had prepared them. Yes, I had told them the questions that I want to go through with them, and I allowed them to respond, right? But on the actual day itself, right, a lot more came out. Okay, and that's the scary part for a facilitator. Because when a lot more come out, right, means you must also be able to hold the space for the conversation to continue. Okay. So and I was thankful that I could still maybe allow a bit of that to take place. And but a few times I had to bring them back to the questions again and to gently just say, so we want to come back to why we are here for in this circle. And if we could actually be reminded again why we are here. Okay. And of course, I could only do this because at the beginning of the circle, I did tell them the rules, the boundaries, and the purpose why we are here. Yeah. So that's something. Yeah.
So you're saying that this is not magic, but it's process lah. Actually, it's not an instantaneous magic lah, but a process that goes on with follow up.
Yes, there's no magic in it. Yeah. But it's a process. But it helps us to be more explicit as a practitioner, explicit when we actually work with others, that we know why we are doing certain things when we actually speak to the individuals. It's not just that I feel like talking to them and just allow them to say whatever they want, but we know clearly a framework that kind of help us to able to rely on of why am I doing this in this particular way? Why am I setting high expectations in this particular way? Why am I giving high support this particular way? Why am I processing through the compass of shame? And so all this actually all and these concepts don't come on their own like by itself. It's a whole package. Okay, it's a whole package. Yeah.
We have a question from Steve, I believe.
Okay.
Yes,
Steve Rees.
thank you, Luis. Hi, Nigel. I couldn't turn on my cam, but I just want to come back to the preparation stage where you emphasize its essential component. May I ask, in your experience, were there times where you felt that it wasn't, I mean, either party weren't ready and that you wanted to kind of pace them and have more time to prepare them well enough, or you just felt that one session is enough and then you can go into the circle thereafter? Thank you.
Yeah, I had other individuals that I work with that weren't ready for the circle. So actually, one of my other individuals that I work with, right, he didn't want the circle at all. Yeah, I prepared him. Actually, I prepared him for 8 sessions. I even went to his parents. I spoke to his parents. Parents very excited that they really want this circle to be able to have this conversation with him, but he don't want. He told me this one thing: if I have the session and I'm going to talk about everything that's happening, that happened, I will become more angry at them. he told me that I have not come to a place that I have acknowledged and forgiven them and take responsibility for what I did. He upfront told me that. And I told him, okay, it's fine. We don't have to go through the family circle itself. But in the 8 sessions, I processed with him what he was experiencing and why he was going through this, why he was responding in such a manner, using the same concepts as well. And I thought, that was good enough, and that was it. He didn't want to proceed any further, and I didn't force him into a session as well. Yeah. So people will ask me, did I fail since I didn't bring him into a circle with the family? Yes and no, maybe. Yes, because maybe at the end of the day there was no circle with the family. But I also thought by me coming in to allow him to talk about what he was experiencing, and going through with him and building that relationship with him, I felt it was good enough. Because he could actually explicitly tell me what he was going through. And when I showed him the framework, I showed him the different concepts, he was able to point out, hey, yeah, Nigel, this is me. This is where I am. Yeah. And I thought that was good.
Just a comment from me, Nigel. I don't think you fail. It's just that he's not ready to move forward. And I think it requires more time. I don't think we should say we fail or we are successful. The time
Thanks,
is
I'm
right.
sorry.
Yeah.
I
things will
believe,
happen.
I believe everybody has their time and space that they need. And I remember telling him this. I told him, if you ever need me to come and facilitate a conversation for you and your family, always know that I'm always here to facilitate that conversation again.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think people need time. So that's why I say it's not a magic that immediately I ask the questions already. When they saw the questions, they'd be like, wow, I'm ready to talk about whatever that's happened with me and my family. I'm ready to have this conversation. I don't think so. It takes time to process through, because you must understand, maybe some of them have never ever talked about all these things before. So imagine for ourselves, maybe sometimes we don't even dare to talk about all these things that's within us, the shame and the vulnerability to finally sit down with your loved ones to talk about all these things. It can be very challenging and difficult. Yeah.
We have some questions from Joanna. First of all, how do you tell if they are ready? Are there assessments?
How do I know whether they are ready and whether there's assessments? Okay, so the readiness is based upon when I prepare them. Okay, I will see how they are responding during the in preparation, and see how they actually, what do they understand from the time of when I'm going to bring them together.
Sorry, so there is no like actual assessment. It's based on like their response. Is it can I see it that way?
So based on their response, based on also for them to let me know whether they are ready to come into that circle.
Because I think like I do work with inmates also. Sometimes I feel like sometimes they don't really know what they want also. There are times where they are like, okay lah, I'm okay, but you can tell that there is like tension in the family, but they just brief it out, say like okay, and then sometimes it's very hard to tell whether are you really ready for it, because when you want to, like you say, they sweep under the carpet for so long, right? You want to unveil everything, right? How do you know whether they are really ready for what they may have to face?
Good question. Yeah. So at times, right, I have been into preparation sessions which I will bring out in situations that might arise during the session.
Correct.
And I will process it through with them. What would they feel? What's their feelings towards it? Yeah. So
Okay.
if there's still a lot of animosity, there's still a lot of maybe things within them that they feel that if they go into a session, that by their responses of that, they would actually trigger even more.
Yep.
even more hatred or things like that,
Yeah.
then I would spend even more time just processing through with them.
On
Rather than-
whatever we are talking about, like you just go with flow, is it?
Yeah, correct.
Mm.
So take more time to prepare them. So I think the
Okay.
key thing is that never feel there's a need to force just because of the need to bring them together and then we force them into it.
Understand.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got one more question. Just wondering, like, because it goes both ways, right? When people are hurt, especially when we work with inmates or offenders who like, you know, repeated offenders, their family, there are times where, what if it is in a case where the inmate says, I'm ready, you know, and I really want to restore my relationship with my family, but the family is not ready. Then it is like they already feel, I mean, the inmate definitely already, like you said, they are going through shame and hurt, right? And to put that step to say, okay, I want to restore relationship with my family members, but yet their family is not ready, or maybe they, you know, they don't want. I mean, there are cases where parents just abandon because they feel like they cannot handle. So how do we then like go ahead? Yeah.
In fact, sometimes might not just be parents with their children, it could be even with spouses. So I had this particular individual, his spouse didn't want to have this conversation with him, but his daughter wanted. So such things do happen. And so I will be upfront with him or her, with him, and then I'll just say that so you know your family is not ready to have this conversation yet. And you know, when I process through with you, you also had such feelings and all. So they too have been affected because of the action, right? And just as how you might have needed time to finally come into this space to be able to share about what you've been going through, your family also needs some time to before they could even come to have this conversation. And I'll ask him, say, do you think it'd be okay to allow your family to just have this a little bit more time so that I can process through with them what's going on before we finally bring all of you together to have this conversation? Yeah.
Okay. So how do you sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions. How do you gauge when to, you know, like kind of like you say, like step back and let them, you know, they are okay to go on their own, that kind?
So usually I will just monitor. Yeah. After the restorative circle, I will just monitor with both families. So I'll do a review session. I'll meet the families again.
Okay. So there's follow up.
There's follow up. How do
Okay, I
they
see.
pick up the session? What did they think that's benefited them during the session? So the same way, also review together with the other individuals.
Okay.
Thank you so much. You do have a follow up then, Nigel?
Yeah.
You do. So you confirm that now. Now, you know, do you use volunteers or are they all full-time staff in LCCS?
In LCCS, all full-time staff.
All full-time staff, right? Yeah. So, you know, if volunteers were to come in, right, and do this sort of stuff, these things that you're talking about, the restorative practices, you put them through a process of skills and competencies before, and also assessments before they actually become ready to take part in this particular space?
I honestly think it's possible. So, okay, I have primarily most full-time staff, but I do have volunteers who have been long time with us who actually facilitate such circles. So I have about 2 volunteers that take on individuals on their own.
Yeah.
I do prepare them.
Yeah, Nigel, this is probably very important because I feel like if you're gonna put somebody in the space, especially this space, right, it becomes very critical for them to have the right skills and competencies. Otherwise, they could blow up make the whole thing explode, right?
Yeah.
And it become unretrievable. So for the staff that you have, right, I know you're a big setup because I know about LCCS. I know Ivan, well, and I've been to your dinner as well. So I think Do you train the full-time staff to do this?
Yes.
You do? Okay. So you have a program in place.
Yes, actually we have training. There is so LCCS I moved to a place where we are accredited training organization, and our training is now WSQ.
Yeah, funding and approved. Yeah,
there's
funded
also
and approved.
funding. As part of that, you can use the Skills Future Fund as well. The
Yeah.
whole course also comes with assessment and things like that, and reflections. So it's a 3 days course lah.
So this course is specifically dedicated to restorative practices.
Yes, that's right.
Good. Okay. That's
Lawrence,
important. Yeah.
Lawrence, I just want to at this moment also add in a little bit of inputs lah. So Prisons, we ourselves have also been deploying RP for many years. So over the years, we've started to equip our staff with the skill sets, and I want to say that I think the case that Nigel shared, I think that one was pretty complicated. I think that one was really quite deep. But I think restorative practice can also be used as a very simple day-to-day or just a 5-minute thing where you talk about focusing on just asking people what you do to make things right. And it can be a very simple application as well. So it's a whole spectrum. Yeah. So,
no, definitely, Louis, I agree, because in the corporate world, right, we use this. This model is not just dedicated to the prisons. We use it in a corporate environment as well to get teams and all that to come together to work. And we have this community of practices and learning of whatever you call it. But yes, I know it's a common practice. I do. And I know the process as well. That's why, the most important two things, right, is to reduce harm and to avoid blame and punishment. I think these are key components inside it. And it's also to create trust, which is what my fool sort of talked about just now earlier as well.
Hey, Nigel, I have another question is how important is the objective, the objective of the sessions? For example, I think we worked together once on I think the objective was to sort of restart because the families are not visiting anymore, right? We saw that the objective was to restart so that they can restart a relationship rather than reconciliation, which take maybe much more years and all that. But so by how important is the objective in the way how we do restorative process in that sense? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Wei Ming. Wei Ming worked with me in Project Rekindle as well. Yeah. So I think the objective is very is crucial. I think especially because if at the beginning you want to set the context of the circle, especially when you want to bring them together, they have to be clear what they are wanting to come into. Yeah. And also I think that's something that as a facilitator, I might not have it at the beginning. Maybe along the way, as the families, I speak to them, or when I speak to the individual, maybe they have certain considerations of what they want the session to come out from. So my take is you can co-create. You can have a general direction, or eventually this is the aim of the session. But it's important to always allow the community to share what they hope to have also out of the session. So co-create that whole aim with them. Yeah.
So can I maybe rephrase? That means, for example, what our initial objectives was to allow them to start to visit. I mean, there will be visit, but even then, let's say that's our objective. Even the RP process is actually we still need to come to them and sort of although the same direction, we are all in the same direction, but it is to allow them to also to define what they want to, right? Yeah, what they want to achieve in this circle, so that
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely.
I also want to answer a question thing from Anna. Yeah, that if let's say during facilitation situations arise to be loud from both sides or little aggressive, okay, then how do we ensure the safe space? Okay, so prior to the whole circle being conducted, right, I would have a certain expectations and rules set in place, boundaries for the session, which I will go through during preparation as well. So like, for example, one of my expectations that I will share with families and individuals is that during the session, we want to ensure everybody is feeling safe. And if at any point in time, there is any physical use of abuse or any verbal abuse that makes any individual unsafe, then I would pause the session and I will review it with all individuals. If I feel that we cannot proceed, I would then call off the whole session. So I'll be very clear with them and also ask them whether is this okay for them or not during preparation. And sometimes individuals might also tell me, say, can you ensure other things to ensure safety? And then they will share that, can you also maybe do this? I will then take that, I'll bring to all the other participants and ask them, do you think this is okay as a expectation and a rule during the circle? So that once we have cleared that off during the preparation stage, the moment during the circle, any of these things happen, right, I will be able to say, if you all remembered during the preparation and at the beginning of my circle, I mentioned about these expectations and rules. At this current junction in time, this has happened. And so I'm going to stop this session here and I'm going to check if everybody is okay to proceed. Yeah. So I would then, so if I realize that it is not ready to continue, then I will call off the whole session.
Thank you. Nigel, maybe another follow-up question is probably some may have this question, but like in all families, not everyone has the same voice, as in the same the breadwinner will have bigger voice in some way that, and the children sometimes may have a lesser voice as well. Yeah. So maybe you want to touch a bit how we can sort of level up those with lesser voice actually. Yeah.
Yeah, good question. So actually the tendency is that if you realize during such times, right, when the children speak, sometimes the adults like to cut in. Okay, they will try to talk on behalf of the children even. So one of the things key that I have is that as part of our circles is to remind all that everybody will speak for themselves. Yeah, so that when a question is being asked, right, to an individual, even the children will share on their own, and no one would be allowed to interject or to come in to cut their voice space or their time of for them to share. Yeah, so this safeguard that it gives everybody equal opportunity to talk and to share, as you know, and that no one would be able to cut in their conversation.
Sorry, Nigel. Thank you. Okay, I think I just want to write on to Wee Ming's question as he brought up children. I just wondering, so when we do like, let's say, restorative practice in a family setting, right? Is there any like age group limit? Like, maybe they have a sibling and having the sibling sit in, does it actually benefit or because I mean they may not be of an age to be really understanding what is happening, like, or even really to contribute. So do we involve them, or is there like an age limit, recommended age limit, etc.?
Okay, good question. So what we usually do, and as a practitioner myself, is that I would allow for the community to decide whether they want to be part of it. Yeah. So I had sessions where I'm not in prisons, because prisons do have a age limit for children to come in. So I had sessions outside, like for example, family sessions with some of the families that I work with, that the children as young as maybe even 4 years old and all share about that is being part of the circle. Yeah. So I remember having this particular family that it was the dad had the dad was just released from prison, just came back into the family. And then at the beginning of the month, he disciplined the children in a rather harsh manner. Yeah. And I had to facilitate a session together with dad and the children and the spouse as well, to process the disciplining issue, what the dad was doing. So the girls were as young as 4, 5, yeah, and they were still part of the session, yeah. So the key is preparing them still, and also allowing them to decide whether they want to be part of it.
So can I assume if let's say the kid is deemed to be I mean children age 4 they may act differently. Some are, you know, at age of 4 they are quite well behaved, but some they may not really understand, and if they happen to be rather destructive, do you know, ask for them to be out of it, or
Oh, so I will still give them the opportunity to decide.
okay, so you still ask them lah. And if they decide, say, oh, we want the kid to stay, then
yeah, then okay, so if the kid is in, right, then of course you also need to ensure the safety of the kid lah. I mean safety of any individual lah, not just the kid, right? So we always have to then go through with everybody. You know, we have, you know, how do we ensure the safety of every participant in this circle?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a comment from this one. He mentioned that this requires a certain level of facilitation and tools or skills to manage. However, empathy is needed in handling the matter. Family work knowledge will also benefit the helper.
To a certain degree, it does help lah. If you are trained in a particular profession, like for example, you are a counselor, or you've been through some counseling training, or you have some facilitation training, or you have an understanding about family, I think knowledge does help, definitely. Yeah, but that doesn't mean to say that those that do not have are not able to lah. Cause I think the concepts are simple, but I think facilitation can be trained. Not that you throw them into the sea immediately and then you think that they can fly. Yeah, but I think we need to scaffold. If we want to do this, we need to scaffold our learning, and to prepare ourselves eventually. So like for example, even the colleagues or even our volunteers, right? We don't just after training 3 days and then we say, okay, you're on your own and then you go and fly. We have them to actually go along with us during the preparation sessions, yeah, help them to experience it on their own, eventually allowing them to facilitate on their own as well. Yeah. But facilitate on our own, it could even have someone else to co-facilitate, to be there as well. Yeah. So you can scaffold the learning.
You know, Nigel, it's good that you shared RP with us, right? My thinking is that the process itself is much more than just this particular segment, because, you know, Kopman just now talked about follow-ups, right? I believe the follow-up should not just be 1 or 2. I think when we talk as a group, right, like Amaze, right, we're talking about from the A point to the Z point, right? And the whole intent around RP must also be a part of that process where you are trying to, because this is a very key piece, the RP, especially with a family, because when you set up a foundation that's strong there, which is family, right, the rest of the pieces that are going to come up, right, is going to be important. So the reason why I share this is because I think the question for this team here, for Amaze, right, how do we continue the good work that RP is doing by LCCS or by whoever it is, and then lead it on to when they start thinking about their career, thinking about rebuilding the family again, and then rebuilding their careers and their life outside of prison. How do we actually build that bridge across, right? That to me is the most important piece that you can bring now to the table. Who do you pass it on to for the follow-ups, right? So I'm very interested as to how you how you do that as part of the process that you're building.
Yeah. So RP just for Project Rekindle, because it's a program, so there's an endpoint lah. But the fact of the matter is that relationships carry on. They don't just suddenly, because of a program, and you end the relationship.
That's right.
It still continues, right?
Yeah.
And so the concept don't change in RP, no matter at which juncture and which point they are at. The concepts will still remain. It will then come alongside with also the other knowledge that you have and expertise that you have in supporting them out of prisons.
Yeah.
Right. So RP is not everything. So today, if you can take one thing away, right? Do take note that RP is not everything.
No.
Okay. Yeah. RP is here to come alongside with all that you all know. And most of you are experts at where you are at. Okay. I mean, different organizations, you all have your particular different training, and you have your skill sets and things you are good at. RP is here to just support what you are doing well already, and come and to embed it to continue to give an explicit framework in what you're actually doing.
So Nigel, just interject here. So Saka would be the one that I would think about, the befrienders, right? So how would you hand the baton to them, right, in this process? I'm just thinking aloud now. I don't know whether you do it or you probably do. How do you hand that baton
not allowed
across?
unless the clients wants it. Yeah.
Not allowed unless, but there's a
Unless the
befriender,
clients
right? I mean, the idea here is that bridge, right? So you have to ask for permission, like, okay. But if that permission is granted, right, how do you hand that baton across? I'm very interested in this because that process seems to be missing somewhere.
Okay. So this is something that we are in LCCS, we are advocating strong for. Okay, so one of our key things that we want to advocate for restorative movement. Yes, we do it in the prisons. There is a restorative culture in that sense. There's the particular language, but it's also like when they come out, does that kind of language still exist when working with them out of prisons as well? We have not reached there yet. That one I must
That one,
say.
Louis will help you, lah. Louis will help you.
I guess different organizations have different approach.
Yeah, we hope it will eventually. Something that even when they come out is familiar to them. When you actually converse with them and all. Yeah. So that's something.
Yeah, but it would seem to me that RP is not just a form of conversation, but it's really a way of living,
Yeah.
So that is very, I mean, this is a very high, very, very tall order, because I think most of us, we are just focusing on, maybe we can just, say things this way, to help them, but it's the way of living, right? Like when they go home, whether the family will change their way of living around, the client. Wow, that's a tall order, man.
Yeah, Florence, you're very right. Yeah. So even with our families that we work with, we also bring these concepts to them, to share with them what RP is. So, and even for them when they relate to their children, right? We also have them to see whether this can help them to also build relationship with their children. Yeah.
Nigel, before Yuna has a question, but before we go into that, can I just encourage everyone to do a feedback form later? So before you all, it's already 9 o'clock. So if any one of you wants to log off or what, before logging off, please fill in the feedback form. And yeah, now Izwan and Yuna has questions for you, Daniel.
Okay, Yuna?
Okay, thank you very much. Wee Ming, I just want to ask for a caveat because, okay, so the thing is, I am one of the facilitator who worked with one of the LCCS. I'm the translator for one of the LCCS facilitator who did the project Rekindle. I think TSA works with you guys. Yeah, so the thing is that what I would like to share, because I did hear some question, especially by Lauren, saying that how is the baton passed over and things like that. And Wee Ming also made a very valid point, sharing that unless if the client wants to the project to be continued or somehow or rather facilitated still by the befriender. Okay, so I think in the course of Project Rekindle where the prison was involved, so the thing is we do continue because I'm a volunteer with TSA. So Project Rekindle somehow rather was so involving TSA. So the thing is, the patent is passed on at the request of the client and also the family. So because we are befrienders first to our client, so we will actually manage that expectation, that part first, and then the RP will continue for the client itself first, and many having a positive outlook and mindset so that the restorative practices or whatever that has taken place with the family can continue when they go back to the community. And as the client leave the prison walls, when they go back to the community, that's when we continue to facilitate whatever that they have went through during Project Rekindle related to the RP practices. So yeah, just to share a little bit of the insights, and to be fair, so it's not that there's no continuum, but when the client requests, we do follow up from there. Yeah, this is when Project Rekindle, LCCS, TSA, and prison is concerned lah. But for other RP practices, I can't speak on behalf of that, but my experience with LCCS, TSA, and the prison has been a positive one. And whenever the client requests for us to follow up, we do follow up actually. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rina.
Nigel, actually, I also always have this question about the difficulty. Maybe restorative practice could be very useful in many areas, but are there areas where it's almost difficult to use it? What I'm thinking, let's say in this restorative justice space, right? For example, that let's say it's the rapist and the rape victim, for example, things like that. It's almost I can foresee it's very difficult to bring them to the table to have this to go through the process of RP process in it. Are there is it possible still, or is it or maybe you can help us to understand, maybe there are other difficult scenario where RP probably is harder to achieve?
Good question. Actually, I feel personally, RP, or I mean RJ, when you bring the victims and offender together, in fact, the more serious the crime is, actually RJ is more effective. And I've heard of stories of murder cases, and circles were facilitated for victims and offender. And now the thing is that it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time to process and prepare them to that space. Another thing is that I feel where RJ or RP is not effective, right? When it is when the community is close to it lah, usually.
That means the society is not receptive as a whole.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
Because you need to get that key thing is forgiveness. I think that one is a very difficult one sometimes, depending on the offense that's been committed. Like murder and rape, I think it takes a big piece.
Yeah,
right, Nigel?
It is. It not impossible.
Yeah, that's
takes
right. Not
time.
impossible. Yeah,
Takes time.
So someone I ever asked the same question to someone before, as in like let's say the rape victim couldn't, let's say the just use the scenario of the rapist and and then they may be even from the same family, for example, or related a relative, and then and usually they know each other in some way, but but sometimes the rape victim might not able to come. Actually, this is someone proposed, highlighted it to me. Is there a possibility that someone like a representative of that rape victim to come forward? Because it's a bit different from what you just earlier you said that the person has to be there,
right? Preferably for the person to be present, but suppose I want to process the impact of harm with the offender, and I can bring in the victim in another form. It could be someone else representing to speak to the offender and to process the entire thing with the offender lah. Yeah, so it depends on the objectives, what it is of why you are wanting to bring in someone else. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna go to Iswan because I think he's been raising his hand for quite some time.
Yeah, I got tired of putting up my hand. So sorry. All right, I'm Izwan I'm the co-founder of Agents of Change. I think I can speak on behalf of Nigel that restorative practice is quite hard when you involve family and all together. So, like I agree with what Mr. Lawrence said. You have to have a certain level of skill sets to facilitate the sessions, and of course dealing with all the different issues that are coming in. I believe smaller groups will work, and a larger group will require a lot of follow-ups and facilitations. I understand when Nigel comes in, and you don't have to justify what you do. We do understand your worries, but I still see the stigma is still there. Because let's talk inmates perspective. If I say that there will be a circle time where all of you with the same mode of things that you did, we're gonna come together and share. Of course, there will be a stigma there, and it's like, oh, they will size each other up. So, what I can share, one thing that I can share is who shares and who facilitates will be, it's just timely where the disaster network is up, right? So I see a better percentage of sharing and more meaningful and impactful programs when disasters themselves share. And then these disasters, of course, have to be vetted. Like I think Mr. Lewis will agree. They have to be vetted. They have to be equipped with certain skill sets and such lah. So I think restorative practice is a good practice. It is in whatever sense that you are coming from, or whatever things that you are looking at, whether being working with prisons or you're using it in a corporate world. It is a community of it promotes thinking, a mature way to settle things between P2P, peer to peer. So yeah, thank you for the insights today. I think all of us can relate to it lah, relationships. Yeah lah, we relate.
Hey, before Peter speaks, what's RG?
Oh, what's RJ? Okay.
RG, J or J?
J.
Oh.
RJ is actually restorative justice.
Oh,
yeah. So
okay.
RP actually, so it started all with RJ right at the beginning. RJ is where you bring victims and offenders to come together to process the impact of harm, and to allow for offenders and victims to have a voice space. RP actually promotes beyond just the RJ portion of the victims and offenders coming together, but also emphasizes on the importance of building proactively the communities around you. So because the stronger the relationships, the less likely we will harm one another. So that's the thought process and belief behind it. When I have a better relationship with you, before I do a particular action that will harm you, I will consider my relationship with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
The
you.
importance of proactively building.
Okay, Peter, you can ask now.
Okay. It's a very interesting session. And I'm Lawrence's friend. Lawrence invited me to join this group. I am now speaking.
He's cited in Canada, by the way.
In Canada now,
Yeah.
in Vancouver. I have been involved with prison ministry in Canada for the last 7 years, with prison visits, with inmates on parole, and more recently with sex offenders. Yeah. So what you have done, talking about RP, over here, RJ, restorative justice, is quite prominent. It's something that they focus on quite a bit. And really the pieces that you talk about today, what needs to be done is to be very focused on what is the objective first. Once you have identified the objective, then moving forward as to how it should be done becomes easier. And the whole process, the center point of this thing is forgiveness, is to restore relationship with, and really both parties would want to forgive each other. You want to have healing. And with healing, you want to have reconciliation, right? With that in mind, the other supporting elements will have to be, there must be an element of understanding, compassion, communication, support, and the well-being of each other. Those pieces, those supporting blocks should be there, and both parties should understand it. It is important because once you have a conversation, the conversation may not go right. But once you have this understanding, then there is an opportunity to manage it and come back, right? If both parties are willing to work in this area, then RP can be very effective and successful. If both parties, one of the parties is not quite prepared to forgive, then it will just be a conversation session. Nothing much will come out of it because you're not prepared to let go and move forward, right? So this is very important. I think to do this work, you need to have a certain level of maturity. The facilitator needs to sense both sides and see how things flow. Because when you are talking about rebuilding relationship, it is very dynamic. There is no formula. There is the common building blocks that we understand, and then you have to see how the dynamic develops. Sometimes it can be very positive, sometimes not. Sometimes it takes a long time, all right, for the party to be ready to talk to each other. Someone brought up the point, reconciliation with sex offenders, the raper and rapist. Frankly, it is very, very difficult to reconcile because the damage done to the victim is very severe. And the victim will probably not want to forgive. So to talk about reconciliation, I think is too idealistic. But but on the other hand, the offender wants some element of forgiveness, a sense of it, so that he can repent. And this is where the victim can help, right? But it all depends on the victim, because the ability to forgive rests with the victim, not with the offender. The offender can ask, the victim may not grant, right? This is a very tricky area and very, very difficult area to deal with. In fact, my own experience is dealing with sex offenders is very challenging. Right? More challenging than rebuilding family relationship. For the victim, very often what they seek is justice. But that justice can also lean towards revenge, right? Because the hurt is very deep. And they may not want to see anything good coming out of it. For the offender, he wants to rebuild, but he needs an opportunity to do so. So this is where the facilitator can have a very important role to mitigate it. And really what the offender wants is some sense of recognition that he wants to change so that he can move on. Okay, so these are areas that are very interesting and very challenging. But thank you, Nigel, for your sharing, and
Thanks,
it is
Peter.
very informative.
Yeah.
And it does open up the minds of volunteers who wants to do this work, to see how some of the elements of it can be employed in your own encounters. And really the objective is, how can we rebuild life?
If there's one thing
is
that
what it
I
is.
want to add on to what Peter mentioned is that RJ actually doesn't set out to bring reconciliation. That's something that actually Peter also mentioned. If you want to put it as reconciliation, it's going to be very difficult. In fact, RJ sets out to actually wants to bring victims and offender to have a voice space to talk about the impact of harm and to process the impact of harm and take accountability for the actions and accepting the responsibility for the harm that has occurred. But whether there's a what's that word, reconciliation at the end of it, that's additional, whether it will have or not. But the most important thing is allowing for victims' voice to be heard, allowing the offender to hear about the impact of harm that they have caused on the victim, because this will then help them to process the empathy within them to understand harm that has been caused.
I'm not sure in Singapore's court system, when you go to trial, whether there is an impact statement being read before judgment is rendered. Because in Canada, during trial, there is an impact statement. In other words, the victim will say, what you have done, how you have affected me. And in fact, that is the point where, especially for sex offenders, it could be a moment of awakening. They don't realize how severe there is. Take, for example, somebody who is addicted to pornography. He watches it every day. All right. And he probably spends hours watching it. It could be 3 hours, 4 hours a day. That is why pornography is a very big industry. You make lots of money. Right. Can you imagine one film? Who would go and watch it? Who would watch that stuff 3-4 hours a day? Even the best blockbuster movie, you would never hit that kind of view time. But pornography has. So what it then ends up with is the potential offender becomes desensitized. He sees it as normal. So when he actually commits the offense, to him, it's just what I see. It's a way of life. Okay? To the victim, it's totally different. You caused severe damage. So the impact statement, when it's read in court, some of the offenders awakens. They see, they realize that, oh my God, this is what I've done. And they don't realize it because when you watch pornography, it doesn't tell you the impact. I'm just using that as an example. So impact statement helps. And one way is, if you can allow the other party, both parties, to share the inner feelings, which is also an impact statement in a way. That is a building block in itself. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have I think the time now is 9:22, and I think we want to thank Nigel for really taking time to explain, and also giving lots of space and time for the participants to ask questions and answer very patiently. I think it's been a very beneficial session for all of us. Maybe to, and also Nigel, would you want to just share a little bit about any upcoming plans for LCCS to have some trainings in terms of RP?
Yes. Yeah. So actually, we do conduct regular trainings for RP. It's a 3 days workshop. You will get a certificate at the end of it as well. There's also, you can tap on the Skills Future credits. There's also grants. Let's say if you are coming from an organization or SME or social service agency and things like that. So there are grants also for that. There's a public run that we have on quite regularly. However, if you feel that your organization may be where you are at, you'll want to do your own private organization run as well, we can cater to that as well. Yeah, so feel free to explore with us. I think I'm not sure how we can do this. You can get my contact. I'm open to if there's anything, I can type my email here. Louis has my contact as well. If there's anything, can always go to Louis and he can direct you to me. Yeah. I'll be more than glad.
not free. No, we're all volunteers here, you know.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
you
so
must
one
give,
last thing. Okay, so thank you, Nigel, for highlighting the courses that you have upcoming. I also want to let everybody know that this virtual session is just now part of the deal. There will be a physical session. They will be held at LCCS 14 October on a Saturday. Right, so that's for those of us who believe in having a physical meetups rather than a virtual session. So that will be something to encourage your fellow colleagues and fellow volunteers to attend as well. If you feel that it's not enough, this virtual session, then you can attend a physical one. Yeah, so with that, I think it's a good session, and I want to thank everyone, and good night to all.
How to sign up for the physical session?
I can send you, maybe you can email me and I can send you the details, the link.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We will also send out the invites lah. So basically we'll send out to the whole community. This one is under Diseases Network lah. So yeah. So we'll invite everybody who's involved in the community.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nigel.
all.
Thank you, Louis.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Nigel.
Bye bye.
Okay.